Good morning, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Do we have a quorum yet?
Yes, we have 5 in attendance.
Okay, we will call that whenever you're ready. Clerk, we can begin the meeting.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Welcome, everyone. Tonight is the budget meeting for the Public Safety and Transportation Committee. Just before we get started, I wanted to let everyone know we will start with the fire overtime item, then do the fire budget, and then move to the police items. That's just so that we can let the fire chief and his crew go and consolidate things into individual budgets and get them over, allow people to move on with their evening. So we will start with at the start of the meeting. We have committee members, Lucas from Ward 1, Alicia Bowman from Ward 6, Councillor Oliver from Ward 1. I'm Andrea Downs. I'm from Ward 5. Does that make 5 for us? Sorry, I didn't see in the corners. And Councillor Maliki from Ward 3, and looks like Councillor Grossman from Ward 7 is joining us.
Correct.
Councillor Markowitz is traveling, and Councillor Lipoff is also traveling. So also joining us are President Albright, and I see Councillor Wright. Am I missing anyone? And from the fire department, we are joined by Chief Gentile. And who's with you, Chief?
Assistant Chief Bianchi.
And Assistant Chief Bianchi, thank you very much. We are also joined by Superintendent McMains. I believe that's Director Matt Tachi. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Super, nice to meet you. I've heard good things about you. And our COO, Jonathan Yo, Perry Rosenfeld, who's our budget whiz. So let's start with 164.23, $1.5 million for fire rescue overtime. Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend the sum of $1,500,000 from June 30th certified free cash to account. Do I need to read the whole account, Clerk?
Yes, you do, please.
Okay, account number 012-1022-513010 fire rescue overtime. Chief, I assume you're the one presenting on this.
Yes, thank you, Counselor. Can everybody hear me?
We can, thank you so much.
So we're asking for this 1.5 million in overtime to staff the apparatus for the remainder of the fiscal year. Overtime's created in the fire department a couple different ways, through emergencies, through callbacks, and things of that nature, through some training. But the bulk of the overtime is incurred staffing the apparatus. So we have some minimum standards that we have to meet contractually. We have 3 different types of apparatus. Engine companies, which we have 6 of, need to have 3 personnel on them for 9 months of the year, 4 personnel on them for 3 months of the year, January, February, March. The ladder companies and rescue companies need 4 personnel on them year round. We have, if we are fully staffed, we have 4 personnel assigned to each company. However, when someone is not working, whether that be short-term vacation or illness, or longer-term injuries, long-term sickness, that creates a vacancy on the apparatus for that shift, and that is filled with overtime. There are plenty of factors that go into how these vacancies are created. We believe that the overall vacancies, we are at 9 vacancies within the department. That is a big factor as to why the overtime number is greater than initially thought. As I've said in the past, it is very difficult and challenging to staff, to be fully staffed in the department-wide. It's very difficult to determine when someone will retire. So when these vacancies will be created in the department. We don't know when we have people out long-term injury, we don't know if they will come back and when they will ultimately retire. Or just your standard retirement. It is difficult to predict that. Because of that, it can take up to 14 months to fill a vacancy from the time we find out about that vacancy until that person is fully trained and on the apparatus, which, that number is, we keep thinking that number is going to get better with the fire academy, which is one of the main causes that it takes so long, but we continue to see it taking up to 14 months. We have taken some steps to reduce these permanent vacancies within the department. For example, we have started the interview process and started the hiring process earlier than we ever have. And we just did that. Actually, we finished up those interviews last week. And we're looking to really push that envelope as far as how early we hire. Understanding that it is difficult to predict, like I said, when those vacancies will actually come up. Just some other statistics that we look at to try to figure out where these the short-term vacancies, the daily vacancies occur. We do have a 5% increase in vacation time last year, or excuse me, this fiscal year. Probably we attribute that to the carryover of vacation time that we have been giving kind of the last end results of the pandemic. We have seen a decrease in sick time usage, about 8% year over year, which we were happy to see. We've taken some steps on some of the few individuals who we see some patterns and some excessive sick time, and we've addressed that. The assistant chief and I have made it a point to address that. So we hope that that's going to be a downward trend in the future as well. We have also seen, and I didn't mention this in the overtime, but another area that we have seen an increase in is we are trying to do our best to help a dispatch center that is really short-staffed as well. So we have been, as you probably know, we've been putting firefighters, fire personnel into that dispatch center, and we do incur some costs with that as well.
Very good. We've talked about the difficulties of recruitment before, including civil service being one of the many complications. When I looked through the personnel detail, And oh, by the way, I wanted to make sure to recognize we have Mr. Roach, also from Financial Services, has joined us, and our Chief Financial Officer, Maureen Lemieux. Welcome, both of you. I only noticed 3 firefighter vacancies listed in the personnel detail of the budget book. And I heard you say 9 vacancies. Can you be a little more explicit about where those remaining 6 vacancies are?
Yeah, I actually believe that at least 3 that I know of off the top of my head are since this budget was even printed.
Okay.
And just kind of to show that it's a very unpredictable or it's very difficult to predict when people are leaving. I know a couple of those vacancies, we had put 5 into a fire academy that was set to graduate last week. Only 2 graduated the academy, and 3 didn't make it through the academy. So that's just another factor it's difficult to predict. We haven't seen quite those numbers not graduate the academy. We've been pretty lucky to see most of them do graduate, but that is that's another factor that we have to take into account.
Excellent. So I'm going to open this up to questions. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief Gentile, thank you for the letter or email that you sent to us and for your presentation just now. Just a quick question on the vacancies. In the letter, you said there was 11, and now you're saying it's 9. Those 9 vacancies, is that, in a normal year, normal, around 9?
In my experience, that is pretty normal. And I actually will thank you, Councilor Lucas. We are down to 9 because 2 graduated last week and we were able to get them into the stations. So that's great news. We have 6 in the Springfield Fire Academy as we speak. They graduate June 9th. So we'll be down to 3. And like I had just said a second ago, we actually had 11 in the academy. So 2 months ago, 3 months ago, they had started, and we're hoping to graduate 8. So that'll leave us 3 spots, and you can see how we're behind the 8 ball already because we started interviewing last week, or actually we finished the interviews last week, but we could be up to 13 months away from those firefighters getting into the stations, depending on how quickly we can get through the process and get them into the academy.
Okay, and the academy, I think you said that, correct me if I'm wrong, you said 2 recruits did not graduate the academy. So are they welcome to reapply to the academy so we can potentially get them on board?
No, so they'd go back on the civil service list, I believe, but they would have to be part of a brand new hiring process.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. All right. All right, thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Thank you. At some point, I'd like to have a wider discussion about overtime and vacancies. It seems like the fire department runs. You do run into a lot of overtime, and you have difficulty hiring. So there's the question in my mind is: do we do ourselves a disservice by not budgeting for the overtime and accepting that there's a certain vacancy rate? Ms. Lemieux, I see you have your hand up. The other question when we talk about this is the folks who aren't hired, the vacancies, I assume leave money in the budget that then gets sent over eventually into free cash. And then we tap that free cash to cover the overtime. Is that correct?
So, thank you, Madam Chair. For any of the vacancies, those are always only in the budget for step one firefighter. Typically, when we have overtimes, when we have vacancies and we have people filling those vacancies on overtime, it's typically not a step one, as most of the department primarily are around step 7 or 8. So it's a much more expensive person filling those vacancies. That number doesn't go to free cash. That amount of money is used to defray the overtime cost. And the reason I raised my hand is because I'm hoping that in the fall, we will be able to have a substantive discussion with whether it's this committee or the finance committee. But now that we really are beginning to get our financial services department staffed, we have, as you know, Perry and Connor, and we're in the process of hiring a third analyst. And I actually have said to them, one of the key things on my list is for us to have as a summer project, a good solid analysis of what's the right break-even point. Years ago, the fire department had 2 extra people on each platoon. And so there were 4 platoons, one for each day of the week. And they had 2 extra people back in years gone by, so that if people called in sick or were on vacation or whatever, there were already 2 people who were working, who made it so that we didn't need to spend an overtime. We don't have 2 extra people on our platoons at this point. We're having a hard time just making sure that we even have a full complement for minimum manning. So we really have 2 issues. One is how many people, what's the right number of firefighters to have for the apparatus that we run? And then obviously the second question is, how do we ever get to that number and stay close to it? But so, as I say, we're hoping that by the fall that we will be able to have a substantive conversation with you. We not only are we going to be looking at fire department, police, it's not as much of an issue. This is an anomaly this year that we're asking you for police overtime. But we do have the same type of an issue in DPW, where we've had a tremendous amount of vacancies over the last couple of years. Excuse me. And so in that area also, we really need to look at what is the right size, what should we be budgeting for salaries, what should we be budgeting for overtime, and in the case of Public Works, what should we be budgeting for contracted work. So my goal is this summer to really do a substantive analysis of the whole thing.
Thank you. And I assume you or the mayor's office will be filing that docket item for discussion. Any further questions? If not, I will look for a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Lucas. If we can do this on a voice vote, we'll do it on a voice vote. For the overtime, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, I believe that's unanimous and we don't need a voice vote. We don't need a roll call vote. Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next thing I want to take up is the fire department budget, so that we can review that and then move to the police items. Chief, I think this is you again.
Thank you, Counselor. So I'll go over kind of some highlights from last year. Last year, the fire department responded to 10,434 calls. This marks the most calls we have the fire department has ever done in history, beating our 2019 run total. We saw our runs kind of gradually going up from 17, 18, 19. Obviously 20 and 21 were kind of an off year, but we have now seen full recovery of our runs and what we go on. Just some highlights of those runs. We had 19 building fires, including 5 working fires, and then the 4-alarm fire on Gray Cliff Road, which I'm sure many of you had heard of. You know, the great thing about, I think, our department in these 19 building fires, most people don't hear about them. And I think that's really a tribute to the job that the men and women are doing in the field. Our goal is to prevent fires first, but if we do happen to have building fires, to get to them very quickly, to keep response times down as low as we can, to get to them and extinguish them quickly. We're hoping that no fires make the news, because that means that we did our job. And I think that that's a tribute to the men and women of this department. We continue to see the city grow and expand. The Fire Prevention Bureau has never been busier with permits, with inspections, with plan reviews, both commercial and residential. They have their hands full, and the assistant chief and I make sure that they have the resources they need to continue to move projects along and not be, but also making sure that the safety measures are in place that are so critical to buildings these days. As we know, that, you know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there were a lot more fires. We've done a great job in fire prevention with reducing those fires. That's really nationwide. But when you do that, you lack some experience, you lack some familiarity with having building fires. And to make up for that, because when they do occur, they still are just as dangerous, if not more dangerous, with the building materials that we're using today. So training becomes such a huge part of what we do, such a huge part of our preparedness. And our training division does an incredible job. You know, the stats state 12,000 training hours with all 190 of our members receiving training, including some technical rescue training, which I can get into in just a minute. Just some other interesting numbers. We did a lot of work on elevator rescue training this year. This was a huge focus for us with our technical rescue program. We are seeing elevators in all the new buildings, and is really an increase in elevator calls. We did just about 50 elevator rescues last year, which is a pretty sharp increase from just 10 years ago when there was under 30. So that has been a real focus of our training and also our technical rescue program. But it just I think that illustrates what the fire service is providing in 2022 and 23. Vehicle accidents, we went on over 330 vehicle accidents last year. Once again, those numbers are just, I think, an indicator of how much traffic moves through the city of Newton on a daily basis. You know, this is it's a busy city, and we do see quite a few accidents really every day, especially, you know, during those weeks. We can go over some of our goals and our outcomes. I'll ask the assistant chief to go over what we have as outcome number 1, community engagement.
Thank you, Chief. Community engagement has been something that I've been working on for the past few years. And I had spoken to the chief when I got the assistant chief's job, and I said, I want to be the one that goes out and meets with community leaders and talks to people about the community and how we can make our Newton Fire Department a better fire department. So this is something I kind of took on. We're constantly trying to think of ideas of how to get engaged in the community. We did a job fair at Newton South this year. That was excellent. We got a lot of input. We learned a lot from that. We've met with the pastor from the United Methodist Church and asked and talked to him about the engagement of the community and what his ideas were. You know, this is all about explaining what it is to be a firefighter, but also it's about trying to gather a bigger candidate pool that we can, you know, select from. And we really try to explain when the tests are being taken, how we can help them prepare for the test in any way we can, talk to them about all sorts of things that can help them be a part of our family, which is the Newton Fire Department. We plan on continuing to do our village days, our station tours, and really getting the word out there that we are looking for people that really want to be part of our family.
Thank you, Chief. Our second goal, we've been at this for a little while, and those of you who have heard Chief Lucchetti probably talk about this a few years ago, but we think we're going to finish and complete our radio system, or our upgrade to our radio system. This is known as simulcast. It has the potential to make our radio infrastructure and system one of the best in the state, if not the best. We've been working on this for a while. We were able to secure the funding, and this year by the end of calendar year 23, we intend to have this fully up and operational. And this is 4 radio frequencies. This is the 2 fire radio frequencies and also the 2 police radio frequencies. We've been working very closely with the police for quite some time. You know, I think it's a tribute to how the 2 departments were able to come together. This was no easy task, and we're really excited about finalizing this and getting this operational. I think the biggest thing that this will accomplish is the ability to communicate for the police and fire inside of buildings. This is such a big improvement. We often struggle to talk inside of buildings, and we oftentimes require buildings to put BDAs, bidirectional antennas. They basically increase the radio frequency inside of buildings. But for instance, some of our schools do not have BDA systems, and we believe this will almost eliminate any schools from needing these systems with our new radio infrastructure. So as you can imagine, being able to communicate inside of a school is such a critical thing for both police and fire. But it goes beyond schools. It goes to some of the other buildings in the community, in the city, that we'll be able to do our jobs better by better communication. So we're really excited about completing that project. I touched on this a little bit already, but just to bring it back, training, such a big part of what we do. This past year, we were able to train 25 new firefighters to technical rescue technicians. That is, so I believe it's 5 years ago, we had trained 25 to the technician level. Some of those have moved on. Some of those have been promoted out of the kind of the technical rescue or the heavy rescue program. And we wanted to, plus we've hired probably 30 or 40 people since then. And this isn't something that you get taught in the academy. This is kind of a specialized training. So we were able to bring 25 new firefighters into that mix, which we really think is going to be really great for our technical rescue program and our heavy rescue. This year, the training is focused on or one of the focuses will be the fire officer and leadership training. So we have, through a FEMA grant, through the Assistance to Firefighters grant, we were able to get an outside company we've actually used for some training last year, and we were really happy with what they brought to the table. So they've created a program for us, which will really focus on our officers and our leaders. And it's two-phased. It's both a administrative end, how to be the boss, but also, to be a friend and a boss at the same time. Some of those early leaders, the lieutenants, the captains, before you get to the chief's rank, so important in some of the stuff that we've been talking about, the respectful workplace, the how to resolve conflicts. That really starts at a low level supervisor, and we really think that this training, because it focuses on them so well, that it's going to have a real positive impact throughout the department. It'll also go. This training will also go into fireground operations. Same thing. The decision making of the first officers is often the difference between a successful incident and not. And that's done at that first supervisor level, the lieutenants, the captains. So we really think that this training is going to be great. We're very hopeful that this training is going to be great, because we think that that's an area that we can improve in. The fourth outcome is really just the continue to provide the best emergency response and mitigation that we can. We have no reason to believe that the call volume's going to increase, if not stay the same, but certainly we're ready to handle these calls, and we're prepared to handle any calls that come our way. Thank you for your time hearing about our budget for next year.
Great, thank you. It's, you're talking about getting radio frequencies in schools, and I remember Newton South, you could, depending on the vendor, your cell phone didn't work in it. Some parents liked that aspect back when I had kids in there. And the radio infrastructure, this is a cost that is shared between the police and fire, or is it entirely on the fire side?
So this was actually capital improvement money. So this was
Okay.
Done by what we call the purple team, the police and fire. And we worked with Maureen to secure those funds. I think before I was even the assistant chief. So it's been a while since we've been working on that project together.
Right, and I should mention, we have been joined by Councillor Greenberg. Welcome. We have a question from Councillor Bowman, and I welcome other questions from the committee.
Sure, thank you very much. I didn't hear you mention, maybe we need to get back to that, any CIP projects that you thought were critical to the fire department, but I guess I'll start by saying, can you tell us a little bit more? You talked about increase in responses. So have you seen this more in suppressions and EMS and crashes, all three? Do you have any, are you able to provide us the data from last year that's comparable to this?
At first glance, we have it broken down, suppression responses and EMS responses, both of those increased year over year. It doesn't look like, when we try to get into the details of the data, that any one particular call is going up. It's just volume in general. That's what we see. We see more alarms.
And so approximately like, do you know what the suppressions were last year? I guess I'm just interested in, when you said they've gone up a lot, I'm interested in how much.
Yeah, I do not have the 2022 or 21 numbers in front of me. I can certainly send you those. They're in the budget book from last year. It's not a problem to send them to you.
Yeah, that's buried somewhere in my office. I think I might be able to find that book. I'll go look, but if I can't.
Not a problem.
Yes. So So I'm surprised that you only had to respond to 330 crashes. I mean, the way people drive in Newton is sometimes so crazy. Multiple ones right at the end of my street, that I see frequently. So let's see, fire prevention, that's like one of your first goals. So for some reason, I've been making a lot more connections recently with people who rent in Newton, who are concerned about things as to like whether or not their property is safe enough that they're renting. Do the smoke detectors work? Do all the windows open? My daughter doesn't live in Newton. She lives in Ann Arbor, but we realized that her bedroom window doesn't open. And I told her that was a huge safety risk, that she doesn't have a second means of egress out of her bedroom, So I wondered if there's any work that you're doing to try to, because apartments are inspected, I guess, when they're first permitted, but there's no process really in the city right now to go back and check, that I know of, go back and check that standards are being adhered to. So are you doing any work with, either community fairs, just trying, like, what are the top things that you see? Smoke detectors, access, keeping fireways, your fire exits clear, things like that, I guess.
So we do inspections, and we're limited by the law as to when we can require them. So anytime a home is sold, obviously is a time that we do get involved. We do come across quite a few concerned renters, and honestly, we address them one at a time as they come in. And we do have limitations as to what we can go in and inspect, but we've had a pretty good success rate. I think most landlords, if not all, when we engage them, they'll ultimately, they want their property to be safe, that they're of course there's costs that they incur, but we haven't run into any times where a landlord was really unwilling. And that's, like I said, there are really constraints as to when we can inspect.
Right. I guess I was more interested in, if you're interested in doing community engagement, one thing you might consider is educating people on how they make their homes, whether they own them or rent them, make them safer. And these are types of problems that people might experience, and just as a way to, have a conversation with people and obviously make them safer, right? The importance of,
I think that's a great idea. And we'll definitely, we'll get that out. We do have one program that's underway now where we've gotten a grant to help some of the elderly folks in the city make sure that their smoke detectors are, compliant with today's standards. So basically under 10 years old. We've gotten a grant to purchase some of those smoke detectors, and then to pay some of our members to help assist them in the installation process, and make sure that their homes are safe. So that's a project that we received the grant money for, I think, just a couple months ago. We're dealing with some logistics here, but it's a pretty good program. But I that's an interesting idea that I hadn't thought of. We'll get that to fire prevention as a way that they can reach out with the renters and the landlords. I think that's a great idea.
That's certain. And I know we're also supposed to be talking about the CIP tonight. Are there any projects here that you want to reference? I haven't necessarily highlighted the fire one, so we're none that jumped out at me. Aren't you buying a new pumper truck?
We are. So we are in the process of purchasing a new engine 7. We have it's been designed now, and it's going through that process. We expect a year from now to have that. I actually don't have to.
Is that the one we voted on already? I guess
Yes,
thinking about the timeline. Wow, a year to get the bill. I guess we should maybe understand how long it takes to get a fire truck built.
My understanding is that that's increased over the years. This is the first truck that that the assistant chief and myself have bought, but even back 5 years ago, it was still a 10, 12-month process. I think it's extended a bit now, but yeah, it does. It takes a little while to get them.
Okay, all right, so that was my questions for now. I appreciate your patience and thank you for the detail.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Counselor. I have Counselor Greenberg followed by Counselor Grossman.
No, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief. I was going through your budget and I don't see a mention of the fire hydrants. Does that fall under your budget? And are they maintained and being replaced right now?
That's actually the water department, the DPW's budget. We do a yearly inspection, kind of in partnership with them. We inspect them and flow those hydrants and then report back to DPW any issues that we find. We actually have a great state-of-the-art system we just built that kind of brings technology into play where we're instant feedback from our crews in the field as to the condition of those hydrants. So that's been a huge improvement. But budget-wise, it really it belongs to the DPW.
Okay, because I've noticed that some of the hydrants in the neighborhood are kind of old and rusted, and some of them are very new. So are they slowly being replaced?
I shouldn't really speak on. I know that they get replaced when we find issues with them. I don't know their standard of replacing hydrants if there's a process.
Okay, and any of those working fires that you have listed, did they have any problems with the hydrants to put them out?
No, there was one hydrant that was out of service that we found out of service on the Great Cliff Road fire. And oddly enough, we went back to our records and it had been tested, I think 3 months earlier. It's just one of those, one of those random things that does happen that, quite frankly, we do plan for. It's the reason that we send an extra engine to take a second hydrant at every structure fire that's reported. We have redundancy built in. We hope not to have it, but that's why we plan for that. And, it's just one of those things that happens.
Okay, well, thank you, Chief. I appreciate it. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Counselor Grossman. I have Counselor Greenberg. I have Counselor Grossman, followed by Counselor Malachi.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and Chief, thank you for the terrific information that you presented tonight, as well as your and your team's hard work year round. It's much appreciated, and it's always great to hear from you and go over this. A couple things that just stood out to me that I wanted to kind of comment on and ask you about. The first was around the recruitment piece, and you spoke about it in going over your budget. You also spoke about it, of course, in the overtime item, and I have a feeling that we're going to hear similar recruitment kind of difficulties and types of information as tonight goes on in our police department, and certainly, as was referenced by our CFO and perhaps our COO, that we've seen recruitment challenges in DPW. Guess I'm wondering, how big of a problem is this? And are we on the precipice of a really big problem? It is just seeming to me, before the pandemic, we were always still having issues with vacancies and getting people in the academy. But since the pandemic, it just feels like we are really struggling to find people to work in our positions. And I am just sitting here thinking about, what can we do? I really applaud the various efforts that you've made. It's feeling to me like we may need to think even bigger. And I'm just wondering how you were feeling about that and what kind of next steps, and as you look to the future, where you see this going.
Yeah, we had talked at one point also about the difficulties of civil service and about moving out of that. And if you want to talk about that as well, Chief, that's fine. But we have started to talk about that. If there's an update, that would be helpful.
Yeah, we've seen our numbers really dwindle in the past 5 years. The chief and I have been involved in the hiring process, I think, for 7 years now. Our list was probably 100 deep. Newton residents looking for the fire job or on our fire list. I think we're in the 30s now, just to kind of give some scale to it. We still do have people on our Newton list that are looking for the job, that are interested in the job, but we're trying to be proactive about it. We see a lot of people that already know about the fire department, right? We see either relatives or friends or people within the unit that know what a great job this is. What the chief's been really working on, and what we talk about, is how do you get other groups involved? How do you get people that don't know anything about the fire service? How do you get those people excited, as excited as we were? Our parents, my father was a fireman. The chief's dad was a police officer, so we knew. But how do you get the people that don't realize the job satisfaction that this brings in? And how do you bring those people in? Because that's going to expand the pool and really diversify the pool to people that have never been on that list and have never taken the test. So we're not that concerned right now about the numbers. We have people we can go get and we can interview and put through the process. But we do see. It's concerning that we've seen a drastic drop in the amount of people that are looking for these civil service jobs, and we're trying to stay ahead of it.
Has the Human Resources Department been actively involved in helping you shape recruitment efforts, and what other steps you might take to deepen interest?
Yeah, absolutely. We started off these conversations with Human Resources. This isn't recruitment is not something they teach in the Fire Academy. So we're looking for help and we're looking for any ideas that and ways we can get into the community. Councillor Bowman's idea of those are a couple areas that really relate to fire prevention, but it's another way to get people to realize what we do for a living and what we do in the fire service. And I think that, those ideas are, we take all those ideas and try to touch or try to get to as many people in the community as we can.
What do you think is the reason, or is there really nothing substantial to say about it, that several of the folks who we sent to the academy were not successful in making it through the academy?
So, if I can, I'm going to hold off any judgment on that, and I'll tell you why. We've, like I said, we've been doing the hiring process for 7 years. We've had, I think, 1 or 2 recruits in those 7 years not make it through the academy for various reasons. I think this is just a one-off. They're really, all 3 were completely different set of circumstances. So it's something that we have to keep an eye on and we have to really pay attention to. But I believe this is just a one-off. For example, we have 6 at the Springfield Academy now, and they're all, I'll knock on wood because they have a couple weeks left here, but they're set to pass and they're doing very well. So I think this is just a one-off, but it's definitely something that we have to pay attention to.
Okay, so my next question is related to the same subject matter. You spoke a lot about the management training piece, which I really appreciate. I can think of a lot of professions. The legal profession is certainly one of them, where I've had experience in this, where all of a sudden somebody is promoted to a leadership position to manage others, and this had no management training, and doesn't know what that means or what that looks like, or how to go about those kinds of behaviors. And I'm wondering how you're measuring success with respect to the different efforts that you've put into place. Obviously, over the last year or so, this has been a topic of great focus in your department. In addition just to everything that you spoke of tonight, there were clearly some, incidents we all grappled with in the last year that really underscored how deeply this is needed. So, again, the question is really, how are you measuring forward progress, and whether or not it's been effective, the various steps that you're taking?
Yeah, great question. Tough to measure, right? That's what we've done is we've looked at and some of those incidents and some other incidents, we look at those and say, well, how did this happen, and what could we have done better? And that's where we found that area where we haven't spent a lot of time training that, or I should say, we realize we can spend more time and focus on that area. That first level supervisor who really has, it's really the foundation of the department. They're the first to the scene, but they're also the first to really deal with any conflicts or any things that are happening within the stations, which we've seen problems. I don't know, truthfully, I don't know how you measure it, but I think that, you can start by measuring it. We have to do a better job of training first-time officers and new officers and old officers as well, officers that have been doing it for a long time. So I think really the focus is we're going to continue to, this isn't going to be a one-time training and be done with it, but really we have to come up with a system where they get the correct training, year over year, and every officer that becomes an officer gets that training.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's it's something we've talked about in terms of trying to quantify our progress in related efforts in other departments. And it's really something, I think, again, that really is an HR question and place that we can implement things. And I definitely recognize our HR department itself has been just working round the clock, nonstop on tremendous needs. I think about tools like even surveying your membership once a year, or how we do reviews, not just reviews of managers to people who report to them, but reviews the other direction, of managers from those who are being managed. All different kinds of tools and ideas that are out there. And I know as a municipality with limited resources, it's hard to have the time and resources to implement these kinds of things, but it does, I'm really happy that you're doing all the right things. I would hate to see us do all the right things and still not really recognize if we're missing things because we don't have the tools at our disposal to be able to measure. So I'll just leave that one out there as food for thought. And then I guess the final question is just really a numbers one, which is looking over at the bottom line of your budget. I had forgotten there was a 1.7% decrease to the bottom line of the budget in fiscal year 23. Is that right? And then this year is a 5.89% increase over fiscal year 23. I'm just looking at the financial and operating highlights page.
I
Is that
assume
right?
Maureen can give us detail, but I'm gonna go with maybe a swap out of chief as far as some of the salary and, probably vacation time, the use of vacation between the 2 years. But the overall growth is 4% between, 22 to 24. So it's not.
Right. It just sort of stood out at me. I mean,
Right.
looking at budgets, you're always looking for things that are outlying, numbers, and that just stood out.
All right, let's let them get back to us on that if we can. We have a number of hands up and we have a police budget in front of us.
Sure. Yep.
So
you.
I thank you, Counselor Grossman, really thoughtful questions and food for thought. I have Counselor Maliki followed by Counselor Oliver.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Chief. On the subject of recruitment, just looking over the department, it's even more so than the police department. It's like overwhelmingly male. And is in your recruiting efforts, are you finding any interest? I mean, it seems like you'd have more applicants if you could appeal to the other kind of half roughly of the population. And are you having any success in interesting, for example, at your Newton South job fair, or the applicants in the civil service and to the academy? Are we getting any more women interested in a career?
Well, first of all, thank you. That is the goal, right? That's part of what we're trying to do. We're trying to increase that, diversity in the pool. It's another thing that's tough to measure, especially in the short term. These recruitment, these recruitment days we've done, the test may not be for 6 months, and maybe they don't get on the don't get on the list. We have seen, I think for the first time, we interviewed a woman for the job. I think the first time in our 7 years of doing it. So that the short answer to the question is yes, we've seen some women that are now interested in the job, and that is definitely one of the areas where we're trying to increase the candidate pool.
But you're saying you only had one get to the point of an interview in 7 years?
Correct.
Okay, that's kind of depressing. And do you have any sense of why they're not showing an interest? Is it hours thing, looking ahead, or
I think it's a combination of this is a very physical job, and some that may not be an area that some people are interested. And I think there's also a misconception about the job, and I think that we need to do, and it goes back to that topic. The people that know about the job probably really want it, but it's getting to those people that don't really understand the job and don't really know the everything that comes with this job, good and bad. So I think that's the area where we really we're trying to focus. We're trying to we're trying to get people who don't have family members in the department, who don't know anything about the department, that we're trying to bring those people in to really understand what this job is and isn't.
Okay, and it's sort of a general question. Do you think there is a sort of growing concern about environmental exposure in the firefighting profession? And what is the state of things now in terms of reducing exposures? I know you have better equipment for cleaning the gear and all of that, but it seems like there's still hazardous chemicals that are, I guess, still used in firefighting. Is that correct? And are things on a sort of better trajectory to reduce exposures to things that can cause long-term health effects?
Sure. So this is probably about the last 10 years, we'll say. The fire service in general really pivoted to really starting to talk about the carcinogens that's in smoke, and the soot that is oftentimes was all over our equipment after a fire. We have taken really great steps. Every station has a gear extractor, or a washing machine basically, and a dryer. And we've taken steps with policies and procedures to make sure that gear is being washed and that equipment's being cleaned. So we did see a big shift in that in the fire service. you know, let's say 8 years ago, and we continue that trend forward. But addressing the what's known as PFAS, you may have seen some of these articles. This is kind of a big discussion that I'd be more than happy to talk about, but I'll try to do it briefly. It's waterproofing chemicals that are used in a lot of different areas, and they are used in our turnout gear. So about 4 years ago, we switched to a different manufacturer to try to reduce that exposure with the PFAS. To this day, there is no firefighting gear that meets NFPA standards. Basically, the NFPA standards means that's what we use to try to keep us and the public safe. There is no bunker gear at this moment that does not have any PFAS in it. You might have seen some stuff going to the State House. There's a kind of a national campaign to try to get that changed, get those standards changed, and remove it completely from the bunker gear. So we definitely have been, you know, health and wellness is really an area that another area that we focus on, and that exposure reduction is something that we take very seriously.
Okay, and a couple other questions. You mentioned on the apartment inspections that you get a lot of requests from renters, but you're limited in what you can do. Why are you limited if you are invited in to do an inspection?
So there is, I believe that the law requires us to inspect homes and them to get inspections done at certain times. Like I mentioned, when a home is being sold, they need that inspection, but that requirement is not there to rent your home. It may be there when you initially set up your home, but not moving forward. So you could switch renters from one to the next. It's not a requirement of the law to have the fire department inspect that property.
Okay, so you're saying you're limited in the sense it's not an automatic requirement when tenants change, but you're not limited in the sense that if a new tenant wants you to come in, you can look at anything you want to look at, or that they want you to look at.
Yes, I would say that's if they're inviting us in, then yes, we can look at that.
Okay, and last question. Does the department have its own gas leak detection equipment? Basically what the National Grid has. If you want to do a check of a reported gas odor yourself, or confirm what National Grid is telling you, do you have the capability, the equipment and the people who can do that?
So we do. We have gas detection, but the gas detection we use is for to determine whether an enclosed area has a potentially explosive amount of gas in it. So that does that, because that's really where we focus. So if there's a gas leak outside, you may see us inspecting homes, the inside of homes, to make sure there's not a buildup of that gas on the inside. But our detection capabilities is really designed for whether or not the gases have built up in an interior environment to a point where that they could become explosive.
So could you check under a manhole if you wanted to?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Malachy. I have Councillor Oliver, followed by Councillor Lucas.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Lemieux had her hand up. Councillor Oliver. Ms. Lemieux, did you want to respond to something that was said earlier before we forget what it was?
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to give you a quick answer on, I think it was Councillor Grossman's question about what appears to be a decrease in the budget for fiscal 23 as compared to 22. I'm not quite sure who asked it. What it is is the 2021 and 23. Those numbers all have the actuals in them. I mean, I'm sorry, 2021 and 22 have the actuals. 23 in your budget book has the budget. And so in fiscal 22, what you see reflected there is at the end of the year last year, when we asked you for, it was actually $1,625,000 that we needed for overtime last year. That number is in the 22 number that you are looking at. When we print the books next year, 23 will have increased by this $1,500,000 that we were here tonight asking you for. So it's all
Got it.
about the transfer for the overtime.
Got it. Thank you. Counselor Oliver, forgive me. Go ahead.
Quite all right. I appreciate it. And thank you for all the information and your time this evening, Chief. I only have one question, and I might fumble around with the best wording of this, so I apologize in advance. But I am curious, Counselor Grossman was going down the road of being proactive and thinking ahead and starting to kind of, I don't know, get a little predictive here. And it started me thinking along the lines of, you know, the number of incidents in total. And I am curious if or how the department thinks about what is your, and again, here's where I'm going to fumble. What is your capacity for number of calls per week, per month, per year, given the level of equipment that you currently have or level of staffing? Or I'm just like, how do you think about capacity? And is there a point where, you know, what are we at? What are we at? 10,434. If we get to 12,000, does something have to change? And how are we thinking about that? Or more to the point, how is the department thinking about that? And that may be an impossible question to answer. I also understand that, but I am curious, like what are the machinations there, if any?
We actually look at it from the very beginning when we're talking about these things. And it's something we actually normally mention, and sometimes it's even made its way into the budget book. But we look at response times. So that's a big thing for us. And it's kind of the first step, right? It's are we able to respond in a timely manner? Because that means that we're meeting our goals and expectations. We're getting there in that quick response time. And as long as we're doing that, then we feel like we can handle that capacity. Once you start, you know, it's not something we don't talk about though. Where does that limit end up? Is the projects on Oak or Grove, are these going to increase the call volume, and by how much? These are things that we talk about with fire prevention, with the assistant chief and myself, because we do have to try to predict. We don't want those run times to go up and then try to react to it. So we do try to predict. Tough to always do that, but we do try to see what new projects are coming into the city and how much that's going to increase run volume. But that is really the metrics that we use, that we really pay attention to, is the run times.
Yeah, and I can speak a little bit on that, Chief. So what we do is, or what I do is sometimes impact studies. So I will look at comparable buildings that are being built currently and that have been built in the past, whether it's a 100-unit building or a 200-unit building. And I'll make comparisons, and I'll go back years and I'll look in our system to see how many times, again, it's an average, how many times we have responded to this location that is similar. It's not a perfect comparison, but it's similar. And we can predict about how much calls we're going to be going to this new project that's being built. And we kind of judge those depending on the location of where this project is being built and how many times in the past we've gone to a similar building like that. So we do look at those numbers and try to predict what's going to happen in the future.
Fantastic. I mean, it's realizing that that is it's far from a science to start with, and even at that, it's an imperfect science. But it struck me that if we think about the trend line that we see in the chart that you provided in the budget book, it naturally kind of leads to the question I guess I'm posing, and it's comforting to hear that that's a topic that is something that is being tracked too. And I'm glad to hear that. I really appreciate your time tonight and your thoughtfulness on that. Thank you again so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Counselor.
That's all for me, Chair.
Thank you, Counselor Oliver, and I'm going to remind those in the meeting that we have another budget ahead of us, which I expected would be most of our discussion. So I have Counselor Lucas followed by Counselor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Chief, for the presentation and answer to previous questions. If you remember, approximately a year ago, we were talking about training within the fire department, about, dare I say, maybe respecting one another in the department and treating everyone the same and with respect. Just wondering, has everyone in the department completed said training, and have you seen any differences within the department?
Yeah, so we were at, and I apologize if I get the number wrong, but I think we were at 96% of the department, it was in the 90s, had completed that training. The other were probably out long-term. We actually think that this next step, we think this next step with the first line supervisors is part of that. And we think that this is really important, and an important piece that they're going to focus on. And like when we looked at some of those incidents, we thought we saw an opportunity for the immediate supervisor to get involved. And we realized that they needed some training in order to get involved. And so I think that that's a key piece of what we think this supervisor training will bring. And it's one of the reasons why we're pretty excited for it for this upcoming year.
Okay, and have you seen any differences within the department?
Yeah, honestly, once again, very, very difficult. And I wrote down, I believe Councilor Grossman brought up surveys. So we're going to, it's tough for me to measure, in all honesty. But I think that that's an avenue that we can have some discussions with HR about, some surveying tools, seeing if we can't get some feedback and see if that's, and make sure that our training's hitting the mark.
Okay, all right, thank you. I hope everyone in the department does complete the training and we do see differences compared to where we were last year. Okay, so thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Lucas. Counselor Bowman.
So I appreciate Counselor Lucas for bringing up that very important topic. That was one thing I wanted to ask about and didn't. Another is, can you remind me how there are requirements for, going back to the recruiting question, requirements of how far from Newton fire personnel need to live?
So,
yeah.
In order to get residency preference on the civil service list, they have to live in the city of Newton for 1 year prior to the test. So from the test back, they need to be a resident of the city of Newton for 1 year.
Okay. And then what about after they're hired?
After they're hired, we have a 35-mile rule. They need to live within 35 miles of the borders of the city.
Okay. So if we want to recruit more, it sounds like if we want to be able to recruit more people to the fire department, we need to build more housing. That's just more housing that's appropriate for young people who might be starting as firefighters, more housing for families. That is something I talked to someone at Upper Falls Village Day who's a Newton firefighter, and his wife was complaining about not being able to find a decent house for her and their 3 kids within that mileage. It's really challenging, and they had to make too many compromises they felt. So more housing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Bowman. I had one question about around outcome number one, community engagement. And I know while we have you and Superintendent McMain's in the room, we used to send fire trucks to block parties, often with the mayor aboard. And I was wondering if you had thought about that and if that's something that when a permit is pulled to close a street for the barbecue or the party, if that's something that police and fire might collaborate on so that you know that a fire truck would be welcome on Amherst Street, for instance, when they have their block party. Definitely got my kids interested in going to the block party back in the day.
Yes, I actually, I love that idea, actually. It's probably something that I wish I thought of, but thank you. I would love to get involved in that and help the fire department get involved in that. Logistically and operationally, probably have to talk it over about how that whole process with the permitting is gonna work and look like, and you know, scheduling and stuff like that. But I like that idea and I would like to get involved.
Well, back in the day, it happened fairly regularly if you got the permit enough in advance. And I imagine not every block party these days has enough kids at it to warrant a fire department, but it might. So it's one of those things that would have to be asked when we do the street closing permit. Thank you very much. I think we're ready for a straw poll on the budget. And we'll need to call the roll. The motion would be to, I gotta get the number here, to approve the fire department's budget of $27,567,637. Is that correct?
Chair,
Where's
that was
Mr.
last year's.
Lane?
Chair
You're
Downs,
right.
I think it's 29 million.
You're right. It's $29,191,045. Sorry, hit the wrong column. Thank you. So, Ms. Delaney, will you call the roll on that?
Sure. Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Malachi,
Aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Just a point of clarification, this is
A straw poll.
straw
yeah,
poll.
I guess.
I guess
either
we
way.
could do it.
Aye.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and not that many of us.
Counselor Bowman
Aye.
and Counselor Grossman.
Aye.
Okay, that's
Okay.
6-0.
Super. Thank you very much for joining us, Chief. And we are going to now move over to the police items.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
You may stay if you wish. We don't have a capital improvement item on yours this year, right?
Are you talking about the police?
No, talking about the fire, but that's fine. Welcome, Superintendent, and welcome to the first budget meeting where you're delivering, I believe.
Yes.
Or did you? Okay. So let's start with 188-23, appropriate $640,000 for the Newton Police IT Department. This is Her Honor the Mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend the sum of $640,000 from June 30, 2022 free cash to a Newton Police Department capital account to fund several technology initiatives, including a storage area network and significant technology infrastructure improvements. Go ahead.
So thank you for having us tonight, and I'm addressing these two issues. The first one is the $375,000 for the new data center. That is a very antiquated system that needs to be replaced, and I won't get into the details, but Matt Toccio is here to do that for me. I can't speak to it nearly as clearly as he can. The other part of that is the police laptops and the cruisers, which are typically replaced every 5 years. Part of our plan is to work with Maureen in the city to decide or to find a way to incorporate that into our police cruiser budget. And Matt Toccio can probably address some of that too. So I'll turn it over to Matt. Thank you.
I thought it was, I was reading the outcomes and I thought it was tablets, not laptops, but Mr. Toccio, I look forward to the details from you. Welcome to the department, by the way.
Hello all. So basically, we have a very antiquated data center, which serves both police, fire, and EMS. Coming on board, realizing that all of our systems are on one piece of hardware. So if we were to have a failure of that one piece of hardware, our dispatch center would be blind to everything from CAD, EMD, to even notifying firefighters that are not on call of a structure fire. So all
No redundancy at all.
Pardon me?
There's no redundancy at all here.
There is not currently.
Okay.
So I put together something similar that I put together in Needham over almost 2 decades there, that would give City of Newton Public Safety a redundant data center, but also a secure network. Currently, we're not in compliance with certain criminal justice information system laws. So this would create a network for both police and a joint network for police and fire that would share resources together in the data center. That also being said, it would secure some of our usernames and passwords. So if someone were to hack my username, they would have access to the entire Newton Police systems. Using 2 forms of authentication and those types of systems and upgraded firewalls. Currently, we have firewalls that I wouldn't put at my own house. We definitely shouldn't be running them in our police department. So that being said, that dollar value is a large amount, but the equipment approximately will last 5 to 6 years. And it will secure us from cybersecurity threats, as well as give us a redundant system in case we have an emergency. I mean, one of my first month on the job, I was at Newton Police at 3 in the morning because our EMD server was down. So some of our systems are very antiquated. So we're trying to move forward and come up with a better plan with technology in the data center.
Oh my goodness. I feel like we ought to be having this in executive session and not recording it. This is not good information to have out in the public. It's very concerning.
The tablets are another story. They're running Windows 7. I actually watched a committee meeting about our desktops from 2022 about them running Windows 7. So the tablets are a large dollar value. Like Superintendent McMahon said, we would like to incorporate that moving forward a few years out into the car budget. So when we put a car, say its value, say 55, 60,000, that would increase by probably $6,000 in today's dollars into that car, and then they would just be trickled down the fleet from marked and unmarked cars.
Okay.
The tablets are used in a 24/7 environment, so they're different than a regular desktop, and that's why their cost is a little bit more money. The current tablets that we have are consumer grade tablets. A lot of them are failed. Also, when the car shuts off, the computer shuts off because the batteries are beyond their useful life. You can no longer get parts for these tablets. So when an officer has to get back in their mobile office, they turn the car on, they have to log into the processes, they have to log into the different websites. The browsers are old, they're struggling with opening up some of the cloud products that we're moving to. So those are also in dire need of a replacement.
Oi. All set?
All set with that, yes.
All right. I will take questions from the committee. We have Counselor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you Superintendent McMains and Mr. Toshi. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. So I understand that you are replacing approximately 50 tablets in the cars, in the police cruisers. Just wondering, I don't know if you mentioned it in your presentation, but what are you doing with the current tablets that are in use?
The current tablets will be recycled and no longer used. They are, like I said, they're beyond their useful life and they cannot support an operating system of today.
Okay, yeah, that's all I had. This is something that we need to have, so I'll be ready to move this whenever you're ready, Chair Downs.
Unless we have other questions, I'm ready to move this. All right,
So
it's moved. All in favor? Say
aye.
aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that's 7-0. Our-
6-0, excuse me.
Sorry, 6-0, you're right. Keep my numbers straight on this. 189-23 is our next item. It's about police patrol overtime. Per honor, the mayor requesting authorization to appropriate and expend the sum of $250,000 of June 30th, 2022 certified free cash to account number 0120103-5130110 police patrol overtime. And for those listening at home, the police overtime is for fiscal year 23, which ends July 1st, and it is coming from fiscal year 22 free cash. Is that correct? Okay. Is that you, Superintendent McMains?
Yes, that's me. Thank you.
Okay.
So we're kind of going to repeat what the fire department says. We're kind of in the same boat as they are. We're asking for $250,000 to cover us through the end of the year to cover overtime fees. These overtime fees are produced from a significant number of officers who are injured on duty. In the past year, we've had, I think, approximately 10 officers injured in the line of duty. We continue to cover those folks and pay those fees. That's substantially, I guess, higher than we've had over the last several years for sure. Another part of that is a lieutenant vacancy. Due to the civil service issues that have popped up, we've been unable to fill a vacant lieutenant position. And in not being able to do that, we've had to pay overtime on several shifts every week to cover that lieutenant position. School traffic posts, every single day, we have traffic posts that are not being covered by crossing guards. And when that happens, we have officers who are assigned to those posts. It's not really such an issue in the morning because those posts start after our patrol officers start in the morning. However, in the afternoon, they're carried over an extra hour every one of these posts that we have to maintain. Final part of that is dispatchers. You heard the fire chiefs talk about the fire dispatch, how they're sending their firefighters in to answer calls, not necessarily emergency calls, but definitely business calls. We're doing the same thing. Every time we go below minimum staffing in our dispatch center, we have a police officer and a firefighter manned or staff those two positions so we can maintain the emergency calls rather from the dispatchers, and the less important calls, the business calls by a firefighter and a police officer. Those are essentially the needs of the department.
Great. Any questions from the committee on this? I see Counselor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Superintendent McMains, what is the department doing? What is the department doing to recruit more traffic guards? I think it was 11 vacancies in that area. It's been like this for probably over a year and they're still vacant. So just wondering, what are the recruitment efforts?
So we're working with HR to get that out there. We put it on Facebook, we put it on Instagram, social media all over the place. Again, HR's put it out on a few places, and the turnover is immense in the crossing guards. And every year we get 5, we lose 6, or we get 6, we lose 5. And it's a constant battle to
I
keep.
haven't started the budget.
They work 7.5 hours a week. It's not a huge draw, not a lot of benefits with it. So it's hard to staff those positions.
Okay, all right, well, please continue the effort with HR, I guess. So that's all I have on this one.
I thank you, Counselor Lucas. All right, now I have Ms. Lemieux, followed by Counselor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very quickly on the crossing guards, hopefully something that will help us this summer when we're recruiting crossing guards. The crossing guards are part of a union that had not settled a contract with us since June 30th of 2018. We settled with them during the course of this year. And so that means that now our crossing guard pay is about 15% higher than it was for September of last year. When we have contracts that have been out for years, there isn't anything we can do about raising salaries for people. So we hope that we will be put in a better position for this coming September, now that we have that contract settled through fiscal 24.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Counselor Bowman?
I wasn't going to speak on this, Madam Chair, but given that we decided we were going to talk about crossing guards and my obsession with getting more crossing guards, I feel like there's still so much we can do. And I just feel like we're missing the boat here, working with MPS. We used to have many crossing guards who filled positions in the schools, and, giving just a little more flexibility on that. I think giving, having, we made a suggestion yesterday at Safe Routes to School about, creating some reserve positions that are parents at a particular school. So imagine like the crossing right at Cabot, if you had a Cabot parent there as a reservist, they could fill that and get their kids to school. So I do think there's some things we could do. But I was also heard yesterday at Safe Routes to School, we got to talking about crossing guards being injured on the job, and this being a concern, and being a little surprised to hear that they're not covered by any sort of insurance if they're injured on the job. I understand we're not giving them health insurance, but are they not covered by workman's comp or other, if they're injured on the job? Maybe that's something, Ms. Lemieux, could answer for me.
If I may, Madam Chair, they are not covered. We actually have several positions throughout the city that are not covered. The crossing guards are not covered by workers' comp. I do know that we have paid in the past whatever they're, for some. I don't know if this is true for all. I know there have been times when we have paid people's deductibles or out-of-pocket costs. I don't know if that has been true for everybody. But I do know they are not covered by workers' comp.
All right, I just feel like that is just so wrong. Even like, we're asking someone to stand out in front of a school, to put their bodies between a car and little kids. And if something happened to them, I feel immense responsibility of the city to not have, it's maybe different than if someone's working 10 hours a week in the library, where I'm not expecting anything to happen to them, but or slip on ice, which I think is what frequently happens, icy sidewalks, icy roadways. That is something I would like to know more about, and to understand if there's something we can do about that. We did hear yesterday that is a question people ask, is what happens if they get injured on the job, and then people feeling like this isn't a good job for them to take because they are putting themselves at risk. And so, so thank you.
And Councilor Bowman, if I could address one of the things, we have talked about per diem crossing guards as well. That's something we've talked with HR about. We're trying to implement that as well. So hopefully that will work out. That'd be great.
Yeah, the per diem, I think, is just one of of, you know, if we want to have, just have a little more, you know, provide a little more breathing room for the police to not have to fill a position that could be filled by a parent, and they're probably not going to be able to fill every role, but if it's close to the school, they can arrange to be at school a little early and, you know, whatever, move on, but thank you.
Absolutely.
Set. Thank you. Counselor Grossman.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. The per diem thing is probably the most movement I've heard in being creative and trying something to fill these positions in, I don't know how many years I've been on the council, all the years I've been on the council. I mean, we've been talking about this issue again and again and again, and it just has really struck me through the years that we are, as Councillor Bowman said, missing the mark on how to structure these positions. And I've come to understand that we structurally have big barriers to being able to make changes to what the crossing guard position looks like. I understand these things need to be bargained and that there are different players and different interests involved, but for it to just sort of continue through time with no forward progress in reconsidering how we're structuring these positions, it just, it boggles the mind for me. So I just wanted to add my voice to those expressing this ongoing concern with respect to this particular position. And I can ask you more when we get to the budget, but same question that I asked our fire chief about, you know, sort of concerns about recruiting and filling positions going forward. We've heard from Chief Carmichael about this in terms that I found concerning. I'm wondering what your outlook is as we move forward in, you know, interest in, and now I'm moving away from crossing guards, just, you know, interest in the profession of policing and where you think we're at and headed.
Just like the fire department, we are suffering a huge loss of residents who want to become, excuse me 1 second, if I don't move, my lights go off.
Go ahead, and we should probably save this for the budget discussion. If you don't mind, Superintendent, let's save this for the budget discussion and take a vote on this so we can move to the budget discussion. It's already past 8:30. And I know some of our members get up early and some of our the folks on this call get up early, and we've all had a long week of meetings. So can I get a motion on the item, please?
Motion to approve.
To approve, thank you. So the Batiste Police Patrol overtime item 189.23 has been moved by Councillor Bowman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. We can move on to the budget then with a unanimous vote. Prefacing the police budget, if I may, we are talking to the superintendent who's currently covering 2 jobs. Yes, our police department is probably our 3rd largest budget after the schools, our 4th actually after the schools, DPW and fire, and that's appropriate and right. Our residents want to have professional first responders as well as good infrastructure and good schools. Our schools, after you add back all the pieces of their operations that the city budget covers, which now includes their retiree health costs, are 65% of our entire budget in the city of Newton. So we won't be comparing the rates of increase, since a percentage point on the school side is much more massive dollar-wise than it is for either of our public safety departments. I'm also not going to entertain discussions of the marathon. We have a discussion item on that that is coming up on June 21st. And I'd also like to take means and methods, including tasers, off the table so we can have a deeper discussion with the department later. I personally am really pleased with the police department's progress under Chief Carmichael. Mental health for officers and mental health responses are now more integrated into everything that the department does. Training, problem-oriented policing, de-escalation, and more. And like with the fire department, a lot of work is going on across the city in prevention. The department was way ahead of its peers in providing statistics in conformity with state police reform laws, a model of transparency with government oversight, and I am looking forward to seeing more progress on the NPD website now that Director Taccio is on board. Also really happy to see your promotion, Superintendent McMains, as well as Captain Doucette in traffic. So I'm going to open it up to your presentation, Superintendent.
Thank you. And first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for allowing us to speak tonight and considering our budget, and apologize for Chief Carmichael's absence tonight. He's going through some issues and is not available. I'd like to start off first with some of the things Chief Carmichael and the police department have been able to successfully implement over the last couple of years. We've done a number of community outreach things, including positive tickets, where we catch kids doing the right thing. We've partnered with businesses like Cabot's, Sweet Tomatoes, DNA Pizza, Antoine's, to offer free items to kids when we present them with a ticket for doing the right thing. That's something the chief wants to continue doing. As far as his outcomes for next year in the community policing, that's one of the big items he's looking to push again and get more businesses involved in doing those type of things and offering gifts to kids who we catch doing the right thing. We found it to be pretty exciting. People see the chief walk up, or they see Leo walk up, our canine, our community resource dog, and they absolutely love it. So we're going to continue doing more of that. Transition into Leo. Leo's been with us now for, I think, a little over a year and a half. He has really evolved into being a really versatile dog. He goes into the classrooms at school. He visits kids. He visits elderly folks out in the community. He goes to, different community events. And he's recently finished his search and rescue training. So he's actually been involved in a couple searches where we've looked for elderly folks who've walked away from their homes. And he's actually found a couple. He's missed a couple, but he's found a couple. So he's doing pretty well. He's a young dog. He still has a lot of training to go through, but he's coming along very well. Some of the other stuff we've dealt with is the community crisis intervention team dealing with mental health. That, coupled with the Drug and Alcohol Coalition the chief has instituted to prevent alcohol and drug abuse. And I know those are things that we've talked about in the past and things we've done that have already happened, but we've instituted a POP unit, which is a problem-oriented policing unit. And everybody knows Sarah Eknayan. I hope she's our social worker. Newton was, I don't think we were the first community with a social worker, but we were one of the first, maybe 5 or 6. We've had the a social worker for approximately 10 years. Sarah's been with us for almost 5. Chief Carmichael has recently implemented a POP unit, which is right now staffed by Sarah Eknayan and Sergeant Melanie Rooney. They go out and they look for the underlying issues causing community problems, such as homelessness, substance abuse, mental health issues, domestic violence, anything that we feel could use extra help or resources. We ask Melanie and Sarah to take a look at and seeing if they can help those folks out, whether it's services and resources provided by the city or some other community team out there that can help out, like Riverside Crisis Center or anywhere else that we can find resources for the community that these folks are in need of. So Melanie and Sarah are doing great with that. That is something Chief Carmichael would like to see in the future. We add to those positions. if we can find the resources and get the staffing back up to where we could dedicate a couple more people to help that out. Excuse me, that's something we really want to work on getting more of is more resources into that aspect of policing. Chief Carmichael has promoted the first female bureau commander, Amanda Henriksen. Everybody here knows Bruce Apothecary. He was with us in that bureau, that position for 20 some years. He left, it was a huge vacuum, and Amanda Henriksen has stepped up and filled that spot very well. She's working on social media our social media presence rather, getting information out there to the public that's important and timely, as well as getting out information on our police officers, trying to make them more human and dealing with the public more. So when we see people like Justin March, who had a presentation on there, or a few of the other officers who've been presented in one of our social media posts, and hopefully people see that and they say, hey, I know Justin March. I saw him on social media or Facebook or Instagram or whatever. So we're really working hard on that. One of the other things we've done with the community outreach is we partnered with the Northampton Boxing Club, where every Wednesday from, I think, 4 to either 5 or 6, we have officers who go down to the Northampton Boxing Club and work with juveniles, young kids, and teach them how to do boxing. And it's pretty cool. I haven't been down until yesterday. I went down and I went in full uniform with my duty belt on, and I gotta say I was a little winded after doing calisthenics and all that stuff, but the kids are great. They want to get involved. They want to ask questions. They want to learn about what we do. And that's one of our outreach things towards recruitment is, hopefully we can get these kids involved with police at a very young age and show that we're normal people. We're easy to approach. We like to have fun. We like to work out with them and do all that kind of stuff. So there are a number of things that Amanda Henriksen's starting over there and trying to get up and running. It's definitely a work in progress, and we're pretty proud of what she's done so far. Along with mental health, we have the CISM team, which is our critical incident stress management team. Over the past few years, we've had a bunch of people come. We've had a few people go. They've changed titles here or changed job responsibilities, and they haven't had time. But we're able to train more and more people in community or critical incident training. So this is instances where officers deal with work stressors like a suicide or issues with child abuse or something like that. Officers go to these calls and it's fairly traumatic. So we have the CISM team where they're able to talk to officers, and sometimes they don't want to talk to Newton officers. So we have a regional team where we might have Boston police come in or Brookline police come in to talk to our officers or some other community. And likewise, we would go to that community and deal with their officers if they, again, sometimes they want privacy. They want to be able to talk to somebody who's not going to judge them or they don't know anything about them. So that's one good thing that we've also gotten up and running and really worked on. And the final thing is Matt Toccio. You all have met him. He is a huge step up. Not to say there's anything wrong with Steve Smith. When he first came here, he first came here in the early 2000s, and he really did a lot for us, making our stuff digital, electronic, all of our reports. He got our report writing system in and a few other things. Matt Toccio is a true IT professional. He comes in, he recognized right away that working with Delphi, the company we had who came in temporarily, Matt was able to build a strong relation with Joe Mulvey and his team at City Hall. He's able to build a strong relationship with Alex Chattis in the Newton Fire Department. You heard Chief Gentile talk about the purple team we have. It wasn't really a purple team for years. It was, I'll just leave it at that. It wasn't a great purple team for years. Now it's a true purple team. We have Alex Chattis comes over all the time to work with Matt. Matt goes over to the fire department. We have meetings quite frequently with Joe Mulvey and his team. So it's really a good collaboration to come up with ideas to make Newton Police Department a better, technology-wise, a better place to get things done and to work on that. So I can't say enough about Matt Toccio. I don't know if he's still here or not, but he's a great, yeah, there he is. He's a great resource, and I'm glad we stole him from Needham.
Thank you.
That's what we've done in the past. So going forward, the chief has put in his outcomes, community policing. We're going to continue doing the things that we do. We're always looking for new ways to get out in the public and do things like the Northampton Boxing Club. We'd love to do more of that. And as summer rolls around, we find that the the kids don't really want to come to the boxing club because they want to ride their bikes with their friends or do whatever, school's out, but we fully plan to re-implement this in the fall when school kicks back up, and any other things we can come up with community policing, we would love to be able to do.
You need more officers on bikes to ride with the kids.
Yeah, that's a thing. When I first came on, that's the first thing I wanted to do was ride a bike. I thought that was the best thing in the world. You come to work, you work out for 8 hours, and then you go home. It was perfect. So we do try to get more people, especially when they first come on, when they still have that enthusiasm to get out there and want to do things. We try to get them out on bicycles and get them involved in that. And interestingly enough, we have an officer who came to us from Plymouth. Gosh, I did his background about 10 years ago, and he came to us. He's probably got 35, 34 years of policing in, and he is kind of our liaison, or our team leader for the bicycle guys, our folks. And he is out there getting them all involved, and it's great to see an older, more senior officer really recruit these young people to get them involved in stuff. Item number 2 was training and equipment. You folks talked about the tasers, less lethal stuff. Those are things that we think are vitally important for policing. I think every police department now is looking to upgrade from, right now we carry batons. Nobody wants to see anybody ever get hit with a baton. And that's the last thing we want to do, or get shot with our firearm. So we're really looking to upgrade our less lethal options. Trainings, we continue to do critical incident training. We've listened to the Police Reform Task Force when they talked about ABLE training. I think we're up to 110 of our 138 officers now are ABLE trained. Right now, we're going through the recertification or the refresher training rather, for the folks who already went through it. They're going through training as we speak to get the refresher training. And there's a ton of other stuff. Just like the fire department, we're sending our new captains to leadership training. We're sending new sergeants to sergeants training. We are trying to not recruit, but kind of mentor the new people and get them involved more in leadership classes. And so they can take, promotional tests and really strive to be strong leaders. And I can't remember which counselor talked about management training. We've also started doing that with some of our command staff, sending them to the FBI, some of the leader classes, which are to help them become good, strong leaders and managers. It's not always easy when you come on, you want to be a police officer, you want to go out and deal with the public, you want to make car stops, you want to do this, you want to do that. And you don't really get an opportunity, as the fire chief said, to learn management or leaderships, more management stuff in the academy. But we really want to make sure that we're able to get our officers trained and mentor them to be able to do that. He talked about recruiting. That is a huge thing we're trying to work with. We're working with HR. We're working with all kinds of resources trying to get that done. And one of the things that we find, just like the fire department finds, is when I came on, there were hundreds of people on the list 27 years ago. Now last year we had 12 people on our list. This year we have 22 people on our list, residents rather. So we have 6 folks in the academy, 6 males in the academy right now. They're graduating June 15th. They will go through an FTO academy or FTO process after that. They'll be out on the street in probably the middle of September-ish. That is a monumental task, as the fire department has said, about getting people interested in our jobs. And Chief McDonald started this when he was chief years ago, about reaching out to the houses of worship, trying to get young people involved in this. And Myrtle Baptist Church, that one of the pastors there said to us, you gotta work on the kids who are younger than high school. You gotta get them in middle school and get them interested in policing and show them that the importance of it really, and that we're just people just like them, and we need to work to get those young people involved more. We're always open to ideas on how we recruit. We've put a ton of stuff out on social media. We've worked with HR. We've tried to do laterals, We've got a ton of people who are truck drivers down in Texas who want to be police officers up here. That's not really what we're looking for, but we are making an effort, and we're looking to see if we can get laterals to come from other communities. That kind of ties in with the last thing the chief talks about, is collaborating with employees and unions, trying to get things done. We've recently settled last year a couple contracts. This year, we're trying to work with the NPA to settle that contract. Once we do that, we think we're in a strong position to show that Newton pays fairly well. We have good opportunities here. We have good benefits here. It's a good place to work. Our community enjoys us. They support us. And those are important things to get people to want to come here. That's essentially the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And since I interrupted, Councilor Grossman, why don't you start us out with your follow-up questions on recruitment?
Thank you.
And-
I appreciate it. And obviously you spoke to it to a large extent. I just continue to wonder, as much as I really appreciate and admire the recruitment efforts that you're making, where's this going? And are we at a tipping point that requires us to be really starting to think in new, different, and I don't know, other types of ways?
Yeah, Counselor, and that's what I started to talk about briefly with lateral transfers. That's what, interestingly enough, that's what the union lawyer talked about. One of the bargaining sessions was that this day and age, we're going to find traveling police officers who work for one department and the grass is greener over here, so they move over here, or the money's better, or the benefits are better, or the crime's a little less, or whatever the case may be. So we're always trying to find new ways to get folks. And you know, we just had a 40-year employee, Carolyn Curry, retire, who was steadfast in her policing efforts. She taught in service, she taught in the FBI Academy, she did a ton of stuff. And when we lose people like that, it is immensely, I don't want to say harmful, but detrimental to our police department, right? We lose a leader, we lose a person who's been able to help us a lot. We lose a female who's moved up through the ranks, has been a detective for a long, long time. And we would like to recruit women. We'd like to recruit people of color. And that is one of the things every civil service department struggles with, is we have to hire off a civil service list. And that civil service list is subject to those who take the test. We were fortunate our last time around last year, we hired 4 police officers. 3 were Black males. That was awesome that we got those 3 gentlemen in. And that whole group, we've noticed, like, they come in with this enthusiasm and this excitement for doing the job. And we want to be able to bottle that and share that with everybody and get them to share their enthusiasm with their friends, their younger siblings, or their cousins, or whoever, to get them to want to be police officers. And as the fire department chiefs talked about, a lot of our people who come on, I think 2 of the people we have coming on now, their fathers were police officers, or their cousins or uncles are police officers. So that's kind of how we get recruitment, is people who know somebody who's a police officer. And that's something we would like to do more of. And again, we're open to all kinds of suggestions. If anybody has ideas, we're happy to listen to any of that.
I wish I had better or newer ideas to offer you. I think I'm just grappling with it, you know, and again, not just with your department, but across many different departments that we've seen in the city, and the changing nature of work and what people are looking for, and sort of what that means. It's just something I'm really thinking about. And I should have started, by the way, by thanking you and your colleagues for everything that you do every day, and you know, and your families as well. We deeply appreciate it. Appreciate the late hours you also spend with us in this committee time and time again. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Grossman. I have President Albright, followed by Councilor Lucas.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I'll add my thanks for your presentation tonight, and also, as Councilor Grossman said, for all the work that you and your department does. This was not my original question, but I was interested in the homelessness issue that you raised. Do we have a big homelessness issue in Newton?
I would suggest anybody who's homeless in Newton is an issue, right? We want everybody to be comfortable, to be housed. it's not a big problem. We had a homeless person who passed away a few weeks ago on the Charles River. He was housing himself there, and he was discovered by 2 Newton residents who knew he was down there. They had went out and bought him dinner, and they bought him a tent. They got there, he was unresponsive. We responded down there, and he had passed away due to the elements of the weather. It's sad. It's sad for us. It's sad for their family who now are going to miss them, and we should all be concerned about that. We had a homeless gentleman last week who was out here next to the police station, and Sarah Eknayan and Sergeant Melanie Rooney observed him. They went to McDonald's, they got him a lunch, and they brought it to him so he would at least have something to eat, at least at that point. He wasn't from Newton, he was just passing through, but those are things that we are concerned about each and every day, whether they're down by the Roy Rogers or the circumferential highway, the truck stop or the rest stop there, people sleep there all the time. We have a gentleman, Michael Foley, who lives in Weston over by Norumbega Park. He comes into Newton all the time to Dunkin' Donuts, and we often find him and we try to help him out, offer him a breakfast or a lunch or whatever will help him get through the day. Those are things we all try to work on, and Sarah and Sergeant Rooney have done a great job trying to get these folks resources. Some of them don't want resources, but those who do want resources, we're able to find resources for them.
So do you work with Health and Human Services with Megan over there to find them some resource, help them find resources as well?
Absolutely. Megan and Sarah talk probably every day. I'm sure Sergeant Rooney talks to her as well, but they have a great relationship. They pass ideas through back and forth, and some of the resources come through Megan. So it works out quite well.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, I know there was a homeless man who lived outside of my building at Tufts Medical School, and he did not want to go to a shelter, and he lived there for years. And he was only pulled off the street when they insisted that he come because it was going to be, like -5 degrees that night. But he was there and they couldn't make him go anywhere else. With respect to recruitment, we've talked over the years, and I know we've talked a little bit in the fire department about going off civil service. And I know there was some discussion at last year's budget hearing about going off civil service. So have you given that any more serious thought?
The short answer is yes, we have. There's a much I guess, harder answer, a more difficult answer is we've been in discussion with both police unions. Other things pop up, so we're not really able to discuss it as much as we want to. I think one of the things we're also looking at as far as civil service is there's a couple departments. One I think is either Attleboro or North Attleboro, who have a home rule petition before the legislator to talk about getting rid of the civil service process for the hiring of a police officer. So meaning we can develop our own tests, we can deliver these tests, have people take that, we hire them, they go through the police academy, they do their year of probation. At least this is Attleboro's plan. They go through a year of probation. Once they're done with probation, then they're in civil service. That's just one way to get through the process. But again, that's a home rule petition you have to work with.
Well, if you need us to help you docket something or move it forward, we're happy to help you. And I know the HR director in her prior community helped them go off civil service. So we have resources.
The same with Chief Carmichael. He did the same in Walpole. So
Yep.
it's not something we're not looking at. So
Good. Well, I hope to hear some progress on that. My real question, however, was about the animal control officer situation. We have now a seasonal person on duty, right? But we don't have a real full-time animal control officer still, do we?
we do, however, she's off injured.
If she's what?
She's
sorry.
off injured on duty.
Yes, injured on duty. So does that mean that, I mean, we've had that situation for over a year now. And I know that, I hear in the community often, not all the time, but often, that we don't have an animal control officer, and people are concerned about that. Is there nothing we can do to remedy this situation?
Chief Carmichael has worked with H&HS to discuss that. They talked about a park ranger. There are bargaining implications on that we have to work through. The animal control officer, I'm told we may have a retirement coming up. I'm not sure how that's going to work. That will open up that position where either we post it or we come up with a firm plan to transition our resources from the police department to Parks and Rec or H&HS or whatever that may be. But again, that's a longer conversation we have to have with the unions to get them involved. That is a police department function assigned to our Newton Police Association. And we don't want to, we have to bargain with them in good faith to work through that process. So right now we do have Juan Garcia. He's our seasonal animal control person. He's in there until the fall. One of the things that we may consider is if Juan doesn't want to do it full time, maybe we post his position as a second full-time position and we get somebody who wants to do it full time as well. So there are many options we're looking at. There are some things we can and can't do just because of bargaining and collective bargaining. So we have to address those carefully and respectfully.
Yeah, it's just very frustrating because, I mean, people say, why don't we have an animal control officer? And I can't really give them a good answer. And, you know, it's just, when it goes on for as long as it's been going on, it's just hard to take. So do whatever you can to solve that problem. And the community is not that happy about not having an animal control officer.
I'm sure. And we apologize for that and we will work on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
That's all I have, Chair. I think you're muted, Chair.
You're so right. Thank you so much, President Albright, for that and for your comments and questions. I have Councillor Lucas followed by Councillor Malachy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Superintendent McMains, for the presentation and update on the police department. Just a couple of questions here. I asked this question last year, and I'm just going to ask it again. It's going to be asked this question again next year, probably. The jail diversion clinician, Sarah, just wondering, how is she doing with her work? Is she overworked? Is she underworked? And how is she working along with, I believe it's with HHS?
So Sarah Agnan has made giant steps forward. She has gotten her licensed clinical social worker degree. She is able to do certain things now that she couldn't do before, like issue Section 12s to commit somebody to the hospital. She's working with Department of Mental Health for supervision so she can continue on with, excuse me, my light's gonna go off again. Sorry about that. So she is working with Department of Mental Health to get supervision so she can go on with her and develop her career even further. She's doing great. She thinks with the assistance of Sergeant Rooney, she's able to do a lot more things. She has direct supervision with the police, so she gets kind of the best of both worlds. She has one supervisor versus before she had many supervisors. And this unit is really focusing on these community issues like homelessness, domestic violence, stuff like that we think is important to have in a sound community. So we love Sarah. We think she's doing a great job. It's even better now with Sergeant Melanie Rooney working with her, and they do work hand in hand with H&HS pretty much every day.
Okay, that's great to hear, and I'm glad she's doing well on the job. The other question I have is, in our budget books, there is an increase in personnel from 55 part-time employees to 57. Just wondering, what are the two additional positions that are part-time?
I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what you're talking about. Maybe Maureen might help. I apologize.
That's fine. Ms. Lemieux or Mr. Yo, would you happen to know?
Thank you, Madam Chair, if I may.
Please.
As I think you all know, we have certainly had vacancy issues in dispatch. We have been fortunate enough to have a couple of former employees, one or two who have retired from us and one who had resigned, but who are working for us part-time. Because they used to be full-time employees, we actually added their names to the book rather than just saying, you know, that it was seasonal wages. And so that's why it shows up as 2 more part-time employees.
I follow one of
that's-
them on Twitter. I know he went to New York and he came back for a little bit.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's a great re-addition to the police dispatch center for sure, so.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Lemieux, and thank you Superintendent McMains and all the other officers in the department who help keep Newton safe. Thank you.
Thank you, you're welcome.
Thank you, Counselor Lucas. I have Counselor Maliki.
Thank you. So I was curious about an item in the related to the uniforms where it said we will begin a transition of our uniforms that are more conducive to community policing for officers of all genders. What's that about?
So we work through a vendor who supplies uniforms to us. For the longest time, this vendor only provided Flying Cross, I think that's, or Fleischmann or whatever the brand is that we have as uniforms. We worked with Blauer to get Blauer to work with Atlantic Tactical, the company we use for a vendor, to supply their uniforms. Before we did that, we had our females work with that company to find the best uniform that would fit them the best. And I'm not a female, so I don't know how these uniforms fit them or how they don't fit them. But we wanted to make sure that they were able to get the uniform that, I mean, they're in those 8 hours a day, right? So it's sitting in a car. It's not the most comfortable position to be in for 8 hours. So we want them to be as comfortable as possible. In doing that, we worked with, again, Blauer and Atlantic Tactical to get them part of our portal, which is an online purchasing place where they could buy those uniforms versus the Fleischmann's or Flying Cross or whatever it is. They're more money, but they're more comfortable for our female officers. So that's why we went with that route.
Okay, so there's no massive change in style or anything like that. It's just having a better, sounds like fit. Okay, great. And also in the same area, what's going on with the body worn camera pilot? Has that started or are there plans to start it?
So the short answer is we have not started it. We're looking for funding to purchase those. We can get a pilot for I think it's either 60 or 90 days. We don't know that that's going to be successful enough. We have to work with Maureen and her team to get that process going. But again, it's a process, right? We've negotiated, we've gotten the approval for the pilot program. It's just a matter of finding which vendor we want to use and how we pay for that and how we make it a successful trial. We don't want to do a part-time trial so it's not efficient and we don't get the results that are accurate. That's one thing we're definitely looking for when we start this pilot, is to make sure the data that we get from that and the information we get from the public is accurate as we can go. That way we can deal with the other unions to talk about body-worn cameras.
So at this point, is it strictly a matter of funding? Have you resolved the issues about kind of the storage of the data and privacy and when to turn it on and when to turn it off and all that? Or is that part of the pilot still?
No, we've created a policy which talks about when they turn it on, when they don't, when they turn it off, when they how they store it. We have all that hammered out. That's all ready to go. It's just the final bit of funding and whatever else we need to get this going.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Counselor Bowman, I think you're next.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. All right, so maybe I'll start with crash reporting. If you could give us a quick update on where you are and being able to provide good crash reporting, vehicle crashes, bike and pedestrian crashes. I know that the website needs to be updated with more detail on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we partnered with LexisNexis to get software and get a process to get our crash reports out there. That did not work out. We have, I don't know the gentleman's name, but we have a gentleman who works with Safe Routes. He is
Mike Halley,
yes,
Mr. Halley.
Yes.
He's a gem, a volunteer. He's so knowledgeable. Yeah, so yes, Mike Halley, go ahead.
So I sent him an email, I think it was yesterday or the day before, seeing if we can reach out and see if we can come up with an idea on how to do that. Essentially, what he wants to do is do what Steve Smith used to do when we did that, was kind of data mine our report writing system to get the particulars out to the public. One of the problems we have with that is there's Corey information and CJIS protected information on those crash reports. So we have to talk with Mike and see if he's willing to go through the process of getting cleared to do that type of stuff. He'd have to go through a significant background investigation, all that stuff.
Right.
But that's one method we've talked about getting done. And we have to talk to him first, see what his sense is, or anybody else who we want to bring in. I think bringing in one person is one issue. If we're bringing in multiple people, that's a significant issue. So that's kind of where we are on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Vision Zero is something the city council adopted several years back, and it's difficult to feel like we can make any progress on making our streets safer for all users if we're not actually looking, we're not actually capturing and reviewing and studying that crash data. And, I think it's so critical. So whatever we can do to help support that process, I wish that it wasn't, it's great for a volunteer like Mike, who has some expertise in this, to lend it to a process to, get to generate ideas on how to move this forward, and certainly an appropriate role for him as the chair of the Transportation Advisory Group to promote that. But, I would hope that what we'd be able to come up with is a solution that really is run and owned by the police department, and moving forward on that. So, I think, Maureen, if you could, just for anyone who might be listening now or later, if you could please talk about the difference between the total budget, because of course it looks like the budget is going up a significant amount, but of course it's this year's budget versus the original budget. So the jump looks like it's $1.5 million, $1.3 million, but it's not. If we were able to compare it to the year end, the difference would be far less. Is that correct?
So if I may, Madam Chair, so the areas that have really increased in this budget are in the dispatch center, so the communications area, where we're showing the 2 additional part-timers. In the IT area, you'll see when you look at the controllable expenses in the IT area, we've beefed that up by almost $100,000. So those are really the 2 key items where we've increased, other than us having settled contracts. When we settle contracts, which is very much a part of what has happened here, as I said earlier, our parking control and crossing guards, we had 5 years worth of contracts that were raises that were not in this budget last year that now appear this year. So when you have huge retroactive changes, it's never what we want. We always want to try to stay current, but it makes it very difficult for anybody who's not intimately involved with these numbers to take a look at these budgets and follow it through.
Completely understand that. So a little shift in gears. There are many items for the police department on the CIP, but I understand one of my colleagues talked to after the meeting the other night on, we heard from Mr. Yo that there was a consultant being hired to look at the police department and to review sort of what changes should be made. So I don't know if we're going to talk about those. It sounded like those might be sort of on hold for this year more.
Madam Chair, if I could just quickly.
Please.
Thank you. Josh, are you here?
He is.
There he is.
Oh, there he is. Wow,
I did have Josh
what I just
on-
say
on-
your name and you just pop
I did have Josh on standby here. He's been doing other
Thank you.
things, listening to this, but yes, Josh has been talking with some other counselors and just updating them on where we are. As I did say a couple nights ago, This project is moving slowly now. It's sort of morphed over the last year and a half. Josh will explain that very quickly. I don't want to, we will go into this in greater detail at some point with the council soon. But I think just might be helpful, Josh, if you give a short overview right now of where we are on this project and how maybe it's changed in the last year and a half. Thank you.
I'll try to give you the 2-minute version.
Right.
So in the fall of 2021, Mayor Fuller, working with Chief Carmichael, identified a $3 million police training facility project in our CIP. This was included in the CIP with several other projects totaling tens of millions of dollars spread out across the 3 facilities. In the winter of 2022, we worked with a designer selection committee to evaluate several bidders to do the design work on the project. Kessel Booth Associates, one of the premier public safety architectural firms that does a lot of projects in the Northeast, was ultimately selected. Mayor Fuller shortly thereafter authorized $500,000 of ARPA funds in April of 2022. Over the course of the following 6 months, the whole team, my department included, worked together to better define and understand the project. And in the fall of 2022, in that CIP, we introduced a $13.5 million phase construction project where we had consolidated several facility improvements to come up with a phased plan in a more comprehensive, forward-thinking vision to complete the work necessary to improve the facilities, not only their building system integrity, but also programmatically and thinking about 21st century policing, and then also a training component. But the training component was one small part of a much larger and more comprehensive approach. So what we've done since last fall is working with KBA, our project architect. We've brought on board a number of sub-consultants, structural engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, and quite a few more to do our existing conditions analysis. For anybody who served on a building committee with me, it's the same thing that we do for every school project or a fire station. You got to figure out what you have. And then simultaneously to that, same thing as all of our other projects, we have to understand what we need. And to do that, we take a look at how many spaces we have, the sizes of those spaces, compare that to national standards and local comps for departments that have redone their police facilities to get a sense as to where are we lacking and how can we best utilize the assets that we have to make sure that we're meeting the police department's needs. We are still very early in the feasibility phase. No decisions have been made. And in the next probably 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to see us engage with the city council for an update, as well as start really getting into our design review committee to start engaging with them as well.
Wow, thank you very much. I appreciate that very detailed answer. I think it's very helpful. I've received a lot of questions about that from constituents wanting to know more how such a big project got there that they weren't really aware was sort of coming down the pike. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. There was something else I wanted to talk about, and I don't remember what it is. So clearly wasn't that important. Thank you.
Probably fencing of the parking lot.
No, there was something else to deal with the police, just in general, but I don't remember what it was, so I'm all right.
All right. I had a couple of questions for you, Superintendent. The host community agreement on the financial and operating highlights of $10,000. I thought that host community agreements were mostly income. Why is it in there as an expense?
I gotta say, I have no idea.
That's Leo.
Oh, is that Leo?
The
Okay.
HCA,
Okay.
the HCA fund supports Leo.
Okay. All right. We need to rename that. That's
And now I
Officer
know.
Leo.
Thank
and we know where it comes from, but when you say you have an expenditure, it's not, you don't name the source, you name the expenditure usually. Okay. Then I saw in vehicle maintenance that it's going year over year. It's we're expecting to save $92,000. Are we buying enough new vehicles that we won't need to be doing as much maintenance? Are they that old?
I think some of it is we're buying extended warranties and that's really
Ah.
saving us some money. I don't know if it's 92,000, but
That's
I
a
don't know if
salary
Maureen has
right
an
there.
answer, That's mine.
Ms. Lemieux, go ahead.
Thank you. It's all in gasoline. As you recall, last year, the gasoline prices were huge and we have to lock in for a year. This year, our prices are significantly less for fiscal '24, as well as the fact that we've been buying hybrids. And so they are using less gas. It's all about the gasoline.
Amazing. I'm really glad we're not spending that on gasoline. Couple of other, one other quick question. I noticed under grants, we're going to apply for the traffic safety grant again. It's 25,000.
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Big supporter of the traffic safety grants, and hopefully that'll be another crosswalk sting operation. I have a long story to tell you, or a very short story to tell you about getting halfway across Washington Street and the other side at Trader Joe's, and the other side traffic wasn't, the eastbound wasn't stopping for anybody. Not even two old people in a crosswalk, which was very disturbing. Okay. Any other questions from the committee? I am seeing no more new hands. Shall we take a straw vote? And I am happy to do that by voice acclamation, given the hour. All in
Aye.
favor? Okay,
Done.
so you're going to make the motion, Counselor
I'll make the
Bowman.
motion to approve.
And I have
We
to
could
read
straw
the
vote.
number, and I have to remember to look all the way over to the left of 26,075,229 for fiscal 24 for the police department. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? Thank you. That concludes our business for tonight. Thank you, counselors, and thank you, all of you who work for the City of Newton, for staying with us so late and giving us such detailed answers to our questions.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Counselor.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.